Hey, Mom, it's me. I'm just calling to say Happy Mother's Day, and we're on our way.
Show Mom she's one of a kind with something beautiful from Fred Meyer Jewelers. From timeless heart-shaped pendants to gorgeous diamond studs, you can express your gratitude and surprise her with a love-inspired gift she'll keep close to her heart. And you can find that stunning symbol of just how much she means to you at Fred Meyer Jewelers.
I love you, Mom. I can't wait to see you.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
I love my Charmin Super Mega Rolling yeah. Gold last long, it's TP goals, yeah. Charmin's got 6 rows in one, lasts forever on my buns. Only Super Mega when I'm cleaning. Charmin's got my booty believing.
Charmin Super Mega Roll is 6 regular rolls in one. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
We'll get back to your music shortly, but first, did you know that prescription prices are different at different pharmacies? You could literally drive across the street and get a different price. That's crazy. But with GoodRx, you can instantly compare prices at every pharmacy in your neighborhood and save up to 80%. You're probably thinking there's a catch, right? Nope. It's 100% free and can save you money whether you have insurance or not. In fact, it can often beat your copay. Download the GoodRx app today and start saving. GoodRx is not insurance.
station's emergency alert system. We have been told the outbreak was caused by two men who have killed and eaten the body of the deceased.
Audio is picking up. It looks like it's going through this. No. So I want to touch. Because I want to get an ice minion. The frozen chef, maybe. Bunch of ice.
Not to approach or apprehend these bodies as they're extremely dangerous. If you have been in contact with one of these men, please seek immediate help as you might be infected.
Gotta take a number of all the locations for this. This is like a solid source to make money, like 100k I think. All together if you participate and don't sell, but I'm probably gonna not. I mean, if you sell, if you truly get lucky, you could get a. And see if he joined for a bit. There's one. Did I get it all inside
Hey, Mom.
already?
It's me.
Thought there was
I'm just
more.
calling to say Happy Mother's Day, and we're on our way.
Show Mom she's one of a kind with something beautiful from Fred Meyer Jewelers. From timeless heart-shaped pendants to gorgeous diamond studs, you can express your gratitude and surprise her with a love-inspired gift she'll keep close to her heart. And you can find that stunning symbol of just how much she means to you at Fred Meyer Jewelers.
I love you, Mom. I can't wait to see you.
Spilled your drink? Bounty picks up spills quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent so you can use less than the leading value brand. Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
You're having a sleepover and...
Hey, are you still awake?
So
Yeah. Are you hungry?
find all the
Do you think your dad would drive us to McDonald's?
Deal. There's a deal for every
Half with
sleepover
it,
when you
which
buy
is
one
a
of
good
your
thing.
faves at
The only
McDonald's.
thing
Like the
is
filet of fish, quarter
I
pounder
need
with
a
cheese,
location.
Big Mac, or 10-piece chicken McNuggets. And get
It's gonna
another
be able
for
to get
just
like
$1.
crap ton of money off of this if we get lucky
McDonald's. I'm loving it.
Limited
Because
time only. Prices and
one
participation
of the
may
most
vary. Valid for item of equal or
profitable
lesser value.
minions game is snow minion. A snow minion you only get from presents. If I do get it, I'm gonna be happy, maxed out. That's an easy 1 mil there. So I'm trying to hoping my friend joins, so we could get on and like bum rush this type resins thing. Make a good couple millions hopefully. you think you could sneak on it in like 2 hours? The present event is active. It's starting in 2 hours. Yeah, that was I said. Try to see if you can sneak on. Or do you want to get on like right now and try to get the presents? Early present gets off. Yeah, I mean, it's the present one. Easy like hunt. Easy. Yeah, on the snow island. Only need 3. Oh wait, you already done some? Oh, I have like 16 right now. I've been trying to find a couple more. I'm pretty sure they moved them. Yeah, I've done this like. Have you done the chicken? I know. Have you done the chicken guy yet? He gives you a red present. There's a guy up on a hill that if you complete it, you get a compass to find the presents, and if you completely like finish it, you get a complete red present. Alright, let me know when you can get on. Yeah. Gonna get on in a couple hours. Like, have to do a workout, which I don't know why school ended. I don't get why he's doing a workout. I don't do that crap with that class. Oh, wait, no, maybe I have to make a video of it. Of him doing a workout. Oh, that's probably it. Oh, wait, what? I thought that's what he got in there. When will this ever be open? I've fucking waited, like, patiently. Where the last 2 at? Up here? No. If I did it, I'm disappointed in myself for not getting that one. I am genuinely disappointed in myself. Not finding that one early. Swear to God, what are the rest of them? That gift this year. I'm pretty sure I got the one up here. To be honest, I completely forgot I was live. I'm so proud to put YouTube on instead of this music, but I don't think that's fair for y'all. If anyone ever watches this, to hear a YouTube video you're not watching, at least music. At least for music, you can kind of get it, just pure audio. Most videos you need have some sort of clues. So yeah, plan to do like a solid couple hours stream. My friend to get on with like 7 o'clock my time, which is like 5. Oh god, that's like 5 hours from now. Holy crap! If I do stream for that, that's a solid 5 hours stream a day. Pog. I'm getting there. Okay, 18, 2 more. 2 more, and that's gonna be how much money? An extra, let's say 100k, a little over 100k for these presents. I'm completely fine with that amount of money. What I'm planning to do after this is probably just get a bunch of ice. Like I know I bought a god pot. opening to do all that stuff and me having all that together easily made back for the money. So now I just have to find all the presents. Which is a good thing, because as soon as my friend get on, we can make double the money, so 200k for these, like 200k. With that, so like let's say half a mil to the extra random cost. That's gonna be good. Where is this last? I always thought there was one in here, but do they move it? I'm so annoyed they actually fixed that glitch. That means like half my kills don't work. Aren't worth it. I'm gonna miss this 19 presents. I'll be making 20. Assuming that I get one away. Now to get a bunch of ice. This is something much. What I want. Ooh, actually that's cool. Oh, 25. The frozen blade. That seems good. One shot does 1,000. I don't know how to up the damage, but I can give it reforges. So I see people one-shotting zealots with it. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out someday. They one-shot zealots with it, or like. Okay, if I wanna go fast, did I ever add it to this armor? I never had frost. Oh my god. Did I add it to my other armor set? I didn't? I swear it. I knew it was my first one. Oh, that's probably it. What happened to my first armor set? It disappeared from my body, and I don't know what happened to it. I haven't been able to find it ever since I lost it. So that's kind of a good thing. What should I do actually? What should I do? Is there something in here? Is it another Terry? Alright, my name's Terry. I wanna tear you apart. I'm gonna go. Should I? Let's do some. I don't. Yeah, nobody's. I don't think anyone's in here. But so I'm gonna probably put it some scary stories. If anyone here, say otherwise in chat if you don't want it. So this is just pure narration. So, I just realized I probably should watch this back after the stream, and it probably should be uploaded on YouTube. So I could hear how I sound and how good my voice. Oh. Where's the Where's YouTube at? I don't have a. There it is. You can see my live. Let's see how I sound. Wait. Can nobody hear me? Wait. Wait a minute. Can nobody hear me? Have I just? I know I talk to myself a lot. That. Oh, I was way too quiet. Oh man. That should be better. I know how ridiculous I sound. Actually, my lisp, but I can't roll my do my R's. Miss, miss, nightmare. You hear this well? I probably shouldn't do it because the fact if I probably would get copyrighted if I was a big channel for practically putting somebody else's videos online.
This was not even a month ago, so all the small details are still fresh in my mind. I've been using dating apps.
I probably shouldn't do it because the fact if I probably would get copyrighted if I was a big channel for practically. Can't, so just me being in silence.
Apps on and off for years. I think Tinder sucks along with its customer service.
Putting somebody else's videos online.
This was not even a month ago. So all the small details
God,
are still
I
fresh in my
realized how
mind.
weird I sound to everyone else.
I've been using dating apps.
For me, I sound normal. If I in a pause, I'm trying to get everything right. Really self-conscious of my voice, so I'm really trying to get it back how I'm trying to speak so just me being in silence. I hear an echo. But I closed you.
And I was never a fan of Hinge or OkCupid. I mainly use Bumble. In my Bumble bio, I have my height, which is 4'11". I make a joke about being short, and then I have my Instagram and Snap at the bottom. Because of that, I get a decent amount of random follow requests on Instagram. Half the time I don't follow them back. I also get a lot of random people adding me on Snap, probably more on there than on Instagram. I usually only add them back if I recognize their name from a recent conversation on Bumble, or if their Bitmoji looks pretty normal. I know, that sounds weird. I deal with a lot of stupid, disgusting boys on Bumble, but it's not as bad as Tinder. Still, I'll often have the typical douche frat boy asking if I do hookups or sending any kind of provocative messages. Usually when that happens, I'll mess with them a little bit and then unmatch them. This one time, I guess 3, almost 4 weeks ago, I matched this actually pretty attractive guy. He sent some pickup line that was kinda creative and got my attention. Pretty soon he asked for my Snap. Then seconds later, he added me after noticing I had my Snap in my bio anyway. So I added him back because why not? He started messaging me on Snap. I screenshotted the first 2 pics on his Bumble profile and sent it to my girlfriends, mentioning how attractive he is. My friend Gianna replied right away saying it's a catfish. She matched it too. So I decided I'd mess with them a little bit. The things he was messaging me on Snap were slowly progressing to be more sexual. So I started saying the most unattractive things possible, and they started getting noticeably salty. I said I would be down to come over if they sent me a selfie. He didn't send a selfie, of course. He just replied with a message asking what my address is. I didn't reply at first, asking my girls what I should do next. But then I got a notification that the guy screenshotted my Snapchat profile. I immediately blocked him and remembered I had my location on the Snap map as public. The problem is the houses in my area are spaced out enough where he could easily identify which house I was in. I panicked, asking my girlfriends what to do. They tried to calm me down, assuring me there was no chance he'd come to my house. They did a good job because they made me realize how ridiculous him coming to my house sounded. I was watching New Girl on Netflix. The doorbell suddenly rang. I paused the show, and I felt my heart jump into my throat. I was home alone, not expecting my parents or siblings, and it was past 10. I turned off my bedroom light and TV screen. I wanted total darkness to give the illusion no one was home. I suddenly got a notification that someone added me on Snap. The username was "It's me, add me back." I blocked the account immediately. 2 minutes later, another account added me on Snap. This one, the username was, "I'm outside your house." I screenshotted that and sent it to my friends and family, now in tears. I blocked it as well. There was a long pause now. I hoped maybe he had given up. During that time, I was texting friends and family, but ignoring all their phone calls because I was so paranoid that I'd be heard from outside. Finally, I got another dreaded notification from Snap, saying someone added me. This time the username said, "I'm looking right at you." I turned to the window naturally. I wish I hadn't. I wish I'd just ran out of the room and called 911. But I looked and saw him looking into my room, this disgusting, smiling man. I'm sure my face turned completely ghostly white as I looked at him. I ran out of the entire house, screaming at the top of my lungs down the street. 2 neighbors came outside in response, and I basically ran into one of their arms crying for help. The neighbor called the police for me, but the man was not found in or around the house. I somehow had to gather the courage to go back into that house and stay there for the night. I locked myself in my parents' room since it's the only bedroom upstairs with a lock, and I prayed I'd be able to fall asleep. I lay awake for seemingly hours though, and eventually I knew for a fact I heard something outside the door, like tiny, soft footsteps causing ever so slight cracks in the wood. I sat up and stared at the bottom of the door, dreading the lights outside turning on or someone trying to open the door. I grabbed my cell phone and dialed 911. I immediately said to the operator in a quiet whisper that someone was inside my house and I was alone. But maybe I didn't say it quietly enough, because footsteps on the other side of the door confirmed that I was right. I wasn't just hearing things. The footsteps walked away from the door quickly, and I heard them go down the stairs, and eventually I heard the front storm door slam shut. The cops arrived shortly. The same cops had returned. This time they wouldn't allow me to sleep there the rest of the night. I called my friend Gianna, who was still awake, and she said I could come sleep over for the rest of the weekend. The police escorted me there after I locked up my house. I'm grateful I didn't fall asleep that night, as I wouldn't have heard those tiny footsteps outside my room, and I might not have called the cops in time.
Whatever. One is one.
I hardly use Snap. I find it to be an immature form of communication. I only have one so I can receive snaps from friends and occasionally send people snaps while I'm on vacation somewhere or doing something fun. I do not view Snapchat as a viable replacement for simply texting someone. That being said, when this girl Kate that I hadn't heard from in months, who I was kind of into, one night randomly snapped me, my face lit up a bit. She snapped me a picture in a dark room, presumably her bedroom, saying, "What are you doing?" I replied with an awkward selfie, saying watching Friends, made more awkward with the obnoxiously bright flash from my phone. Another reason I hate Snapchat, because I look terrible in selfies. Expecting her to run away after my selfie, she actually snapped back. I could barely make out part of her face. It was 90% black wherever she was, with a hint of red glow. She said in the snap to come to her place. I was done with the stupid selfies, so I just messaged her back asking where. She sent an address. It was 10 minutes away. I was bored, so why not? I got in my Chevy and started following towards the...
I heard this one, even though it came out yesterday.
I'm Michelle, a home expert from Best Buy, and I'm here to help you find the printer among the many out there that's best for you.
To see my top 5, join me on Expert Picks.
Cars park on any of these streets. Our little neighborhood has very little through traffic. I looked at it as I walked backwards to my front door, and I could tell there was someone sitting inside of it, though I couldn't see anything regarding what they were doing. I don't know if the glass was tinted or if it was just because it was dark out. Later that night, I was hearing some weird sounds coming from outside. It was like a scraping sound. I looked out my window and called out, "Hello?" and it stopped. I had no idea what it could be, but my first guess was the neighbor doing something in his yard. I went back to whatever I was doing, and that was the night. The following day was a Friday, the last day in my work week. After work, I did proceed with my regular schedule. I went on my nightly run a little earlier tonight since it was Friday and I had plans with some friends. I got back from my run, imagining the van to be there again, but it wasn't this time. I went out with my friends to a comedy club, and I didn't get back until late. I let myself into the house and locked the door. It was a long night and I was feeling tired, so I hurried up with the getting ready for bed process. After turning off the bedside light in my room and laying down, that's when things were finally silent enough for me to pick up on some weird thumping and rustling sounds. I felt like they were coming from inside of the walls. It's only a 2-bedroom house, it's not big. I put my ear up to one of the walls, and indeed heard something going on in there. I knocked on the wall and the noises stopped. This was a cause for concern, as I assumed it was a rodent or a wild raccoon. I went out to the living room, and passing by the windows, I looked outside and saw that white van parked outside again. I opened my front door and stepped out to the front stoop to look at the van. I didn't see anyone sitting in it this time. 2 nights in a row of this now, something was going on. I walked barefoot to the side of my house to look for possible holes in the walls for animals to crawl through. Then I came to the outside crawl space door. It was cracked open, and the lock was snapped off. I hadn't paid attention to this door in weeks. I pulled it open a little more, and without a phone or flashlight in my hands, all I could do was lean inside and squint my eyes in the pitch blackness of the crawl space. I heard the faintest little sounds of pebbles scraping against the concrete floor. At first, my naive mind was thinking it was an animal, till the sounds turned more aggressive and more closely resembled human footsteps marching to the crawlspace door. And then, just barely, I could see a person crouch walking towards me. I slammed the door and twisted the knob, but without a lock it wouldn't do anything. I ran back inside my house and called the police. While on the phone, I instantly attributed the crawlspace door to the scraping sounds I heard the night before. The next time I went to the window while on the phone, the van in the street was gone. Police came and I showed them the crawlspace. We had to use flashlights as the crawlspace doesn't have any lights installed. We found something disturbing. In the left corner, there were cut marks in the roof of the crawlspace, as if the intruder was trying to saw his way into the house. The only info I could give them was the white van parked in front of the house. We don't have cameras, nor did I see what he or she even looked like. They never came back though. I'd imagine because I caught on to what was probably supposed to be a silent operation.
It might be a pattern from when I was younger.
Hey, last thing I want to do is hear you and your process.
I just came from doing this delivery. As soon as I walk in, they just start swinging on me.
That did not happen.
You're right. Virgo.
You can't just keep moving away from your problems. Is this water?
Yeah.
My family has a summer home in Arapahoe National Forest of Colorado. It's a 7-hour drive from my home. I don't often go with my parents or siblings, if ever. I go alone for the purpose of hunting and detoxing. I've probably been up there a total of 40 times in my life. The last time I went was a few months ago, but I don't really like going alone anymore. Here's why. It was 2017. I just pulled my truck up the old dirt road onto the grass of the property. There's no real driveway, we just park wherever on the grass really. The house isn't huge, it's modest but nice for a vacation home. I parked up next to the front deck. This was in the dead of summer, but the breeze there was still nice and cool. I let myself into the house using the keypad lock. We don't use physical keys in fear of losing or forgetting them. I was the first one there in quite some time, so I had to turn on the electricity and water heater. In the meantime, I unpacked and ate the lunch I brought with me. I also threw away any mouse and bug traps that were left out that caught mice and bugs. It's actually quite a problem in the house. After all of this was done, I started setting up my hunting gear, which my dad and I leave in a big back closet. By this point, the sun was on its way down. It was around 6 o'clock. A laughter from outside caught my attention. I marched from the kitchen to the living room to look out the big window that looked into the woods. I looked into the woods and I didn't see anyone, so I cranked the heavy window open and listened. The laughter belonged to multiple children, like a small group. This was our property though. That meant these kids were trespassing, probably up to no good. I went outside through the back door to the woods, trying to follow the laughter. I kept going deeper into the woods, and the laughter stayed the same distance away from me though. Eventually I gave up because it seemed like the kids were running away anyway. The next day, while posted up in the tower that my dad built for deer hunting in the woods, I heard the sound of those kids laughing again. Noting that meant they were once again on our property, I decided to call my dad and ask what to do. He told me to chase them off the property if I saw them, so I shot a round into the air. I forfeited any game for the sole purpose of chasing the kids away, but it worked, of course. The sound of the laughing stopped right away. I knew now it would be pointless staying posted up in the tower, so I called it for the day and went back to the house. I wasn't feeling too well anyway. That night I slept with all the windows open to get some air circulating, maybe help me with my headache. Then it came back. The sounds of the children. At this crazy hour, it had to be past like 11 at this point. I climbed up the bed to look out the window. Of course, it was too dark out there. I had enough now, though. I grabbed my Winchester from the closet and a flashlight as well. I didn't have intentions of shooting kids, just scaring them off with a round or two. I went out the back door towards the woods again, where the laughter was coming from. The laughter was louder than any other time before now. Like, it seemed like they were 20 meters away at most. I yelled in a strong, commanding voice to get off my land. I scanned the woods with my flashlight. It wasn't a very powerful one, though. Then, every muscle in my body basically went limp when the volume of the laughter went from 30 to 100 in a matter of half a second. Then something landed on the ground next to me. It was an old-looking speaker. The sounds of kids laughing was blasting through it. I picked it up and threw it back in the woods, then aimed the light back in the woods. At one point, I'm still not sure of it though, but I thought I saw a person standing at the edge of my light. I aimed my Winchester into the air and fired, then yelled a threat like, "Come any closer, the next round goes through your skull." I then ran back inside the back door and locked it. I closed every curtain. I considered calling the sheriff's department, but all the way up here, any police call would take at least half an hour to an hour. I was better off fleeing altogether. As I packed my bag, I heard a smudge on the living room window. I waited a few minutes in an idle position before slightly moving the curtains, revealing something written in blood on the glass. I didn't take the time to read it. I finished packing my bag, took my gun, took a deep breath, and went outside. I locked the door with the code as quickly as possible, then ran for the car as if my life depended on it. I turned the car on and put it in drive before it had time to finish with those startup beeps. I spoke with my dad on the way home. He told me I was right to leave. Anything in the house wasn't worth my life. I stayed at a nearby motel that night, and my dad came the next day. I met him at the house. Whatever was written on that window in blood was wiped completely off. The house wasn't broken into, and we couldn't find the speaker type thing that was thrown at me. We stayed a couple nights, then went home. I don't know who was out there or why they were targeting me. I really hope that blood was animal blood, though.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I claimed all the bits, so I can't make any more, but I made
It's okay to be in this predicament. You're a person, you're human, things happen in life, it can take a toll on you, and nothing is permanent.
Like, if there's any hesitation, I made my money back. If you invest...
I was home alone one weekend, house to myself. I had a couple friends over the first night, and I stayed up pretty late both nights. I was 14 at the time, just started high school, and my parents had just started trusting me enough to leave the house to myself. This was on a Saturday night. I was out with a couple friends pretty late. When we all decided to call it a night, I walked home by myself. Halfway through my walk home, I noticed the car seemed to be following me. So I started to jog home, and the car started flashing its lights. At this hour of the night, I could only assume potential danger, so I turned my jog into a full-fledged run. I ran all the way to my house and checked outside the windows. Moments later, the car from outside parked in front of the house and someone came out from the car. They started running up to my front door. I started panicking. The doorbell started to ring. They started pounding on the door aggressively. I suddenly felt like my life was being threatened. I ran to my room, which is on the lower level of the house by the backyard. I tried to get my parents on the phone, but they wouldn't answer. They were definitely asleep. For a 14-year-old boy, I was scared to death. Now the intense knocking moved to my window instead of the front door. I screamed at them to go away, and they yelled something back, but it was muffled. I left my room to hide in my parents' room and call the police. I made a phone call explaining that I was followed home and someone was trying to break into my house. The banging started at my parents' bedroom window now, as if they somehow knew which room I was going to every time. I screamed, "Go away!" The 911 dispatcher told me not to do that and to keep quiet and stay hidden. but the person banging on the glass started yelling through the closed window, and now I could hear more clearly what he was saying. He yelled there was a person in my house. Then he yelled someone followed me home and might be inside my house. Ignoring the 911 dispatcher, I went to the window and asked in a loud voice so he could hear me, "What are you talking about?" He yelled at me to call the police and stay locked inside of a room because someone followed me home and went to our backyard. I told the dispatcher exactly what the man yelled to me. She said don't trust him just yet and to stay in a locked room until the police would arrive at my front door. I didn't know whether the things the man was saying were true or not. Not until hearing footsteps outside my parents' bedroom near the living room. The footsteps clonked down the wooden floor of the bedroom hallway. I heard each door in the hall being opened until they got to my parents' bedroom door. The doorknob twisted, but since it was locked, obviously the door couldn't be pushed open. I hid in the closet as the person on the other side of the door started trying to most likely kick the door down, as all I heard were loud bangs. Eventually the bangs stopped. I imagine they gave up. I didn't hear footsteps walking away, but probably because I was in the closet. I was still on the line with the dispatcher. She told me police were outside, to which I suggested the police try entering through the back, as that was apparently the point of entry most likely. They were able to enter through the front door though, as apparently the intruder left through the front. The back door was left ajar after the intruder smashed the glass panel on the door, allowing him to reach in and unlock it. I met the police in the living room. The man who was outside banging on the windows was also there. He told this whole story that as I was walking home, he saw some older man crouching in bush after bush, following me in a manner that conveyed he meant harm. He followed me all the way to my house, as a matter of fact. That's why the guy in the car was following me, as well as flashing his lights. I called my mom, who picked up on the third try. I didn't want to call my dad because I was scared of how angry he'd be. I spoke with my mom on speakerphone, with the police listening and contributing reassuring words to my mom. The police dropped me off at a friend's house that night to sleep there, and my parents started driving home that night and got home early the next morning. A police officer parked outside our house for a few hours before driving off. Nothing was stolen at all to our knowledge. And if the intruder didn't break in to rob us, that means he really was just after me, and he came after me in my own house.
Ice minions up and going. I'm just what did I have? Just some other person in my island. Right here. Only one other person.
I work in a middle school as an 8th grade math teacher. Some of you may assume that means I'm like 38 or something, but I'm actually only 26. I was hired young. I'm not saying I'm immature or anything, just that if I was 10 or 20 years older, I may have handled things differently. Of course, this happened during a period that I was teaching a class. The math wing in our school is closest to the lobby. I remember it like it was yesterday, down to the equation I was writing on the board when the lockdown alarm suddenly sounded. It wasn't a drill. All faculty and students are taught which alarms mean what, and this was the alarm that meant go into lockdown for real, not a drill. I hurried to the door to lock it. Each door in the building has a big glass panel in it though, so the doors have little blinds that you could pull down to cover this. Even though we're supposed to pull down the blinds during lockdowns, we're also supposed to instruct students to hide in one corner of the room with the lights off. As I turned off the lights in the classroom, I told the students to go hide in the corner of the room where we would be least visible and audible from the door. I saw the lights in the hallways dim to just the backup lights, something I'd never seen before till that point. I was slightly worried because I knew this had to be serious, and like I said, the math wing is right by the lobby. My classroom is one of the first classrooms you pass as you're going through one of the 2 hallways that veer from the lobby. I was curious, so using the classroom phone, I called the front office. They didn't pick up after 4 rings, so I hung up. I wasn't endangering anyone to my knowledge because the front office is behind 2 doors and the phone wouldn't be heard from the lobby. But still, them not picking up was concerning. There was suddenly a knocking on the door, a frantic, panicked knocking, accompanied with someone on the other side of the door begging to be let in. It wasn't a student, the voice was way too deep. It sounded to me like a guy in his early 20s, if I had to guess. I went to the door quietly and saw the person's shadow on the other side of the blind. He started saying he could see me through the blind and knew I could hear him. He kept saying let me in this scared-sounding, kind of whimpery voice. I looked to my students. Some of them had scared, confused looks on their faces. I signaled for them to keep quiet. Then I asked through the door, who's there? What's your name? He said his name was Cody and that he was a student and needed to get into the classroom because he felt unsafe in the halls. When he told me this, I noticed he seemed to be trying to talk in a slightly higher pitch. I wasn't falling for it. There was no way that voice belonged to a middle schooler. I ignored him and went back to the corner by the students. The guy on the other side of the door started knocking harder now, fiddling with the doorknob and then kind of thrashing at the door, all while still saying, "Help, let me in." I did my best to keep my students from screaming or freaking out. The guy eventually gave up and the noises stopped. We stayed in lockdown for half an hour before an announcement was made that police had searched the building and it was safe. So later on, faculty was given more details, and apparently some 20-something-year-old guy with long hair down to his shoulders was walking around the school with a small handgun. Whether it was a real gun or not remains unknown, but the guy was caught on camera leaving the building through a back exit, and he was found by police 2 hours later, not holding the gun. I think I could have handled the situation a little better. For example, not even answering the guy when he was at the door, but I was so nervous that I really wasn't thinking logically. It's scary to think about what might have transpired if I opened the door for him.
Oh, there's a place up here. Ooh, got mad at...
This was back in my university days, not too long ago. I was in between classes with an hour-long gap. I had to go to the bathroom, but I didn't like using the bathrooms that most other people use. There were a couple restrooms on campus that were never really used. For example, the activity center building's bathroom. Our school's activity center was usually a ghost town during early day hours, and it was next to the building where I'd be having my next class, so it wasn't like it was far away. Inside the lobby of the activity center, some guy was sitting on a desk looking down at his phone. He looked up at me as I passed and said good morning. I said it back and proceeded around the curved hallway to the restrooms. While I was in one of the stalls, the door to the restroom opened and a man asked if anyone's in here. Being that it was the women's restroom, I was a little weirded out by that. I didn't answer. The door to the restroom closed, but I heard footsteps come up to my stall and stop. There was a light tap on the stall door with one of his fingers, I'd presume. Then, in that ever so tiny crack in the door, I saw the man pressing his face up through it. I saw his eye looking in for a second. I gasped and said, "Someone's in here." He replied back asking why I didn't answer him, then told me this building and all nearby buildings are going into lockdown because of an apparent student who was sighted with a weapon. I didn't understand why he was in the women's bathroom with me though. I left the stall to be face to face with him, and it was that guy that was sitting on the desk before. I was guessing he was the front desk worker or whatever for this building. He had to be trustworthy. He showed me a text on his phone from a random number, and it was a warning from the university to stay inside whatever building and classrooms you're in and to lock all the doors due to a potentially armed individual on campus. I found that alarming, so I felt comfortable with him going to blockade the bathroom door with a garbage bin. After he did that though, the two of us just stood in the bathroom together, awkwardly, like I was trying to ask him for more details about the potentially armed person on campus. He said he had no other information on it though. Something about the way he was looking at me relentlessly, like no social cues or when to stop staring at me. I felt uneasy. I pulled out my phone to create a buffer, and as I was on my phone, I thought to just look for a similar text from the school that he showed me, but I didn't get any text from the university. I went to the school's website, which would often have news and alerts. It didn't have anything about it though. I asked this man's name, and he said his name was Eli, that he worked in the building. Now that I thought about it though, his outfit consisted of light blue bootcut jeans with brown boots and a gray hoodie. He looked, if anything, like a maintenance worker. Instead of trying to continue the conversation with him, I was on my phone texting friends, any friends who I knew were on campus at the moment, asking if they heard anything about this armed person. I had 2 friends text back saying no, class was in session like normal. I looked up at the man, who was now even closer to me. Time stopped moving in that instant. He looked at the door, then whispered to me that he thought he heard something, and that we should make a move to one of the stalls and hide. I froze, both physically and mentally. He started to walk up to me, with his arms slightly extended out to nudge me into one of the stalls with him. At this point, the only thing I could do was scream, as loud as I could. I caught him off guard, and I think he went into full-on panic mode, because he looked around the room and then hurried to move the trash bin away from the door and storm out of the bathroom. I proceeded to leave the bathroom a few seconds after him, running to the nearest exit. From there, I called my mom to cry to her about it. She actually called campus police for me and then drove to the school to meet me, and that's when I told campus police about the man, with my mom there to support me. A day later, I received a call from campus police, and they said they reviewed the footage caught in the building and could confirm that man did not work at the school and that they would do their best to find out who he was. I never received any future updates.
Sorry for the quick interruption. Just left school. One of my assignments just got graded. I want to see bio.
It was 9th period, the end of the school day, senior year of high school. 9th period was one of my off periods, so my school days would be a little shorter. A couple of my friends also had their schedules set up that way, Ryan and Scott. Our third friend Tyler had off 9th period every other day. This was one of the days he didn't have off, but since it was Friday and a nice day out, we were all texting each other making plans to hit the beach. Tyler was talking about sneaking out of gym early to come with us, so we were waiting in the hallway by the gym. This hall was in the far corner of the school. The only people passing were students going to gym class. Tyler texted us that he was just going to wait till the gym teacher took attendance, then sneak back to the locker room and meet us in the hall. We waited there for a decent minute. He was taking a while for some reason. There's a set of exit doors at the end of the gym hall we were standing in. It wasn't supposed to be used as an entrance, yet here came some guy through the doors. Even though it was a really nice day out, this guy came through the 2 doors in the hall wearing black sweatpants and a black zipper-up hoodie with the hood over his head. He was also wearing a black backpack. We went silent as he walked past us, making a point of looking at all 3 of us with this dagger of a stare. Ryan stepped up and said, "What, dude? Fuck off." And the guy stopped in his tracks and turned to face Ryan and asked him if he's got a problem. Scott and I stepped in and just said forget it over and over until the guy turned and kept walking. We all agreed that guy seemed extremely sketchy. He looked like he could have been a student, but none of us recognized him. He had a little facial hair, but it was kind of patchy though. A few minutes later, we texted him asking him to hurry up, and he texted back he couldn't sneak out just yet since we're in lockdown. This was a shock to us because we weren't aware of this. He said the gym teachers announced it and everyone was hiding in the locker rooms. We also just realized the doors separating the gym hallway from the actual locker room hallway were closed and locked. We immediately linked it to that creepy looking dude dressed in all black who just walked past us. The reality hit us so much harder when there were these popping sounds from down one of the hallways. At first they sounded like maybe a teacher slamming books on a desk as if to wake a student up or something. But we quickly put 2 and 2 together and realized they were gunshots. The sounds of students screaming quickly followed. Next thing we knew, we saw that guy in the black appear down the hall, and he was running full speed towards us. The 3 of us ran out the 2 doors that the guy entered from, and all the way to the woods next to the school. In that moment, I felt the curtains of life slowly closing, and the thought of death becoming a reality. I looked back twice as we ran, and saw that guy was chasing us, but he was kind of far away. He screamed stuff at us, most of it inaudible, but I did make out him saying, "I'm gonna kill you, Fed." We made it to the woods by half of the fence that surrounds the perimeter of the school, and when we had a nice shield of trees covering us from view, we stopped to catch our breath. We decided to wait it out, laying flat on the ground to avoid detection. We then heard footsteps nearby. They got louder and louder until I could see him running through the woods looking for us. He ran further away from us, not noticing us, and when he was out of sight, we all agreed to run for it back to the senior parking lot. Between the running and the shock of the near-death experience we just had, I don't know how I didn't vomit. We got to my car and I drove all 3 of us to my house. Obviously the beach idea was out the window now. It later blew up on social media in our high school class group chat that one of the new teachers was shot by the guy and was sent to the hospital in an ambulance. He survived, but everyone thought he was going to die considering he got shot twice. No one knows who that guy was or why he targeted that one specific teacher. I'm sure he went after us because Ryan antagonized him. He probably waited to come back for us, or Ryan specifically, because he didn't want to alert the whole school with a gunshot. Who knows though. But that wouldn't have really mattered anyway because the school was already tipped off by a nearby house about him because he was seen pissing on their property before going to the school, not to mention the way he was dressed on an 80-degree day. I consider this a near-death experience, and I count my lucky stars I survived.
I don't know if you're still in here, Xander, but I was watching Mr. Nightmare. I had to go do something my parent called me.
Back when I was 17, my friend told me about this deep web drug website called Dream Market. It was where he bought things like weed and Adderall. He had what he referred to as a trusted dealer, whose information he sent me to buy from. I don't condone doing anything like this. I was simply just young and stupid. I thought buying Adderall would help me with my senior projects. Anyway, I went about doing that. However, this purchase made me intrigued to continue browsing Dream Market and seeing what else one could buy. And I saw this range from counterfeit bills to real guns. This got me more intrigued to view more of the deep web. I found some link somewhere on Dream Market that led to, I guess, what was a drug chat room, because it was just a lot of people seemingly advertising the drugs they were selling and their rates. I found it interesting. Some people would post random .onion links, and I clicked on one. It brought me to a black page with the title Home Base at top in large text. Underneath were a bunch of other random links. I clicked on a bunch of them. Most never loaded, probably being dead links. A couple loaded. One was another chat room. This one didn't have a title. There were like 3 usernames signed into the room, all random looking, just like the assortment of random letters I inputted just because I didn't care. The chat's previous history showed a few people were talking in another language, then another guy was typing in English. That guy was still in the chat room, and actually, before I typed anything, he typed yo directed at me. I typed yo back. He said, "What you looking for?" I typed back, "I don't know, LOL." He asked how I found that link, and I told him just from some site called Home Base. I asked if he had any cool links, as it was my first time on the deep web. He typed back LOL, then sent a link. He didn't say anything else. I clicked the link, and it took a little while to load the page. It loaded the black background first, then a little text box near the bottom, and the last thing that loaded was a video. At first I thought it was like a pausable video, but it looked to be some kind of live streaming video. The video was black and white, and it was of a dark room with some mannequin-looking thing sitting in a wooden chair. There was this grainy effect to the footage that made it feel more surreal and unnerving. I genuinely couldn't tell if I was watching a live video or not. Then, as if it were some kind of movie jump scare, what I thought was a mannequin in that chair suddenly jumped up and sprinted towards the camera, and a loud, staticky screaming sound accompanied it. The apparent porcelain mask that the person was wearing was so close up on the camera at that point that all I could see was black. I went back to the chat and asked that guy what the hell this was. He replied, "Just keep watching, LOL," and then he left the chat. I went back to the other tab, and the video or live stream window was gone. It was now just a blank screen with a text box on the bottom. The text box didn't let me type anything though. My Tor browser window suddenly closed without my doing. Then a deep, raspy voice was coming from my speakers. It was someone obviously trying to disguise their voice. The voice said my first name and claimed they had all my files. Then the webcam window popped up and I saw my face on the screen. I turned off my laptop and went to the Geek Squad at Best Buy where I bought the computer. The guy I spoke to's guess was that he was able to somehow get the basic info off my computer, like my account name. He recommended I factory reset the computer. He helped me with the process. I didn't have anything I was worried about losing on there anyway. It was a relatively new computer. If you're ever on the deep web, I heavily recommend using some kind of VPN, even for the alleged safe websites.
Is there anything that could help? Nah, I don't think anything could help me. I don't. Is there a pedo? No, yeah, rabbit pet, which might help. It's not legendary though.
I'm 24 years old, and I'm from a small town called Yarmouth in Nova Scotia, Canada. I keep my social circle very small. Just my few friends and my coworkers, really. I mention that as a point in saying I don't really know anyone who would be out to get me in any way. I browse Reddit a lot in my free time. I'm an active poster. There was this one night when I pulled up Reddit on my browser out of boredom, but I had a new message. Not unusual, as I'd have people messaging me in reference to my posts quite often. It's a message request from some random account, a now deleted username. The message said, "Check your email, your spam folder specifically." I replied back, huh? Why, who's this?
Actually, how much was the
In the meantime, I opened up my Gmail and went to the spam folder. There was one email that stuck out from the rest, titled in all caps, I know who you are. I opened the email, and it was basically a paragraph full of my personal information, including my full name, my Reddit password, my home address, along with threats. Basically, whoever sent the email was asking for a one-time payment of $5,000 through Bitcoin to a specific Bitcoin wallet address. My heart was basically in my throat. I had that terrible feeling of helplessness, and like the entire world was collapsing in on me. The first thing I did was cover my webcam with a piece of tape. Secondly, I went back to Reddit to see if the user ever answered my message. They did not. I went to report the account on Reddit as quick as I could, as if that would even do anything though. I replied to the email, copy-pasting the exact message I sent to the Reddit account, asking who this was, how they got that information, and if this was a prank. I got an email back around 5 minutes later, in all capitals, saying, no, it's not a prank, we have all your information, including where you live, so your best course of action is to do as we say, and you'll never hear from us again. Obviously, I was not going to shell out $5,000, I don't even make a lot of money to begin with. I contacted all of my friends, asking if it was any of them, like begging them to just come forward now before I call the police. None of them admitted to it, so given that I threatened calling the police, I knew it wasn't any of them. I tried to think of anyone at work who might have issues with me. Really, I get along with everyone at work. I chalked it up to my password somehow being stolen by malware or a hacker, and through that they somehow got the rest of my information. The main question was, do I pay the money? And that was absolutely not happening. I forced myself to go to sleep and left my laptop off the whole next day. I used my desktop instead after getting home from work. I didn't sign into Reddit or anything though. I did, however, change my password on all other websites and apps on my phone. I finally signed into my laptop late that night because I was just so bored and curious. Curious but nervous to see if anything had changed and if I'd gotten any new emails. I signed on and everything on my computer still looked normal. So I went to Reddit and saw the user who messaged me was now deleted. So I went to a subreddit which talked about computer hackers and scams and such, and I posted my experience. At some point, I noticed the taskbar at the bottom of the screen turned darker. Curious, I minimized all my windows, and my desktop wallpaper was different. I knew right away what it was though. I recognized the outside of my bedroom window. The white frame of the outside windowsill was in the picture, and the flash of the camera also caught me laying in my bed, sleeping. Some seconds later, a pop-up window appeared, along with the Windows error sound. Inside the pop-up error window was a message saying the word pay, with a winking face following it. I closed my laptop screen and forced the computer off by holding the power button. I also pulled my blinds down and called my parents.
I don't know why you
still early enough to do so.
Gifts on me.
I told my dad over the phone that some hacker had my info, and he came right over with his truck to help me load any valuables I could think of into his truck to stay with them for a while. Before we drove off from my apartment, my dad yelled like a madman into the night sky, basically threatening whoever was hacking me. It was definitely a scene, but I was too preoccupied with worry to be embarrassed by it. I stayed with my parents for weeks and used my mom's computer when needed. I blocked that email address that sent me the original email. I finally got back to my apartment a few days ago. I'm still scared every night to hear a knock at my window or get another threatening email. I haven't brought it to the police yet, because I'm hoping it's all just a bluff still to get me to pay. I'm also hoping it's over and that they've given up.
God, I just realized how cringe I am.
My name is Miranda, I'm 25. I've had my share of experiences with stalkers and men harassing me. Social media has made that far too easy these days. I once got a suspicious email that I should have known better than to open. It was asking me to click a link to some random page because I was being sued by some random company. I clicked the link, and soon after that my computer started acting all glitchy and unresponsive. Even after restarting it multiple times, it was just laggy and slow, and random sound effects would play once in a while. I was certain my computer had a virus. I wasn't sure to what extent it would go just yet. The next day, I had a bunch of friends texting me what's up with that Instagram post and asking if I was the one who even posted it. I panicked and opened Instagram, but I was logged out of my account. Someone was hacking me. This confirmed it. If they had my Instagram password, I had no idea what else they could have. Apparently the picture posted on my Instagram was some stupid cartoon meme. It was extremely embarrassing. Minutes of freaking out later, my Snapchat started blowing up. It was from some random account that just added me. They were spamming me to Snapchat call them, so I did. When they picked up, I saw like a quarter of someone's face. It looked like a young guy in his 20s. I could tell he was smiling. That was the creepy thing. The way he said hello was so long and stretched out. I was pretty frantic, asking what he wanted in return for my Instagram back. He started telling me some really creepy shit. He said he sees me every day and that he thinks I'm really pretty, and that this was the only way he'd get my attention. I didn't know what to say. He said he'd give me my account back if I would just be his digital girlfriend. As creepy and weird as this was, I said yes in a heartbeat just to get my stuff back. He told me the password to get back onto my Instagram account. As soon as I changed the password, I set my profile to private and put a story up saying that wasn't me, I was hacked.
So sorry.
I asked this guy for his name and what other info he had on me. He said I could just call him John, and that he could get all the information about me that he wanted. He said this with a smile too. I could see it in the fourth of his face that he would actually show. He refused to show the rest. I played nice the whole time, knowing this guy's a sicko. I managed to get him off the call by telling him I'd snap him tomorrow. I then told all my friends about it and asked what I should do. They all unanimously said I should activate two-factor verification on my Instagram account and then deactivate the account and then block him. When I did all that though, he didn't take it too well. An hour later, I got a new Snap user blowing up my Snap. I knew it was him, but I opened the snaps anyway. It was him again threatening me, saying he knows where I live and blocking him was a stupid thing to do. I showed it to my parents now because it was getting serious, so my dad called the police. I didn't block the guy's Snapchat yet though, and I'm glad I didn't. As my parents and I were sitting in the kitchen waiting, I got a snap from the guy. It was a video. I waited a few seconds before opening it. It was a video of him sitting in his car in front of our house, with the caption, "Don't block me again." My dad ran outside in a fit of rage. He tried to stop him, but he wouldn't. But the car wasn't even in front of the house anymore. The guy probably waited until driving away before sending that snap. I'm just gonna say the police did absolutely nothing. They seemed clueless on the matter. But there's not much police could do in hacker situations anyway, apparently. However, I did send a snap of the police car back to the guy, and put a caption, "Fuck with me again, you'll be arrested." He opened the snap and immediately blocked me, so I'd say it works. This story has a happier ending than most, I guess. But the amount of info some people can get from you online is absolutely terrifying. When I was 17 and looking to buy my first car, I was on Craigslist every single day. I wasn't looking for anything fancy, just a beater car that could get me from point A to point B. My budget was $3,000 at most, so the cars I was looking at were no newer than 03, 04. I found an ad one day for a 2002 two-door Honda Accord. It was listed for $2,000, and the mileage was under 80,000, so right away I knew I wanted to check it out. The person who posted the ad lived a few towns over from us, a 20-minute drive on the highway. I convinced my mom to drive me out there to view the car after conversing with the guy over the phone. Originally, I texted him asking for details, but he ended up calling me. He sounded basically normal over the phone, actually rather polite. He answered some questions I had about the car and whatnot, and when he asked for my name and I told him Dan, he said, "Dan, what a great name. That's my name too." I laughed because it was the polite thing to do, but I just found it to be such an odd comment. Like everything about it, it almost sounded like he forgot his name was Dan because of the pause between "what a great name" and "that's my name." It just sounded sketchy. Nevertheless, everything else about the call went fine, so the next day, my mom drove me to the address the guy gave me. Getting off the highway and onto the streets, right away we agreed this was a trashy-looking neighborhood. Bars on windows, graffiti under bridges. I was hoping the guy's place wouldn't seem equally sketchy, but as we pulled up, it was. It wasn't a standard property like the rest in the area. The entrance to the property was between two houses. It wasn't a driveway, just some low-key road that led into an inlet with two more houses. Every house was cramped between other houses and buildings. But there I saw it, the Honda Accord, which was in, I guess, what you'd call the driveway for this house. My mom and I stepped up to the front door and rang the bell. We didn't know if it rang or not because we couldn't hear anything, so I knocked. One of the windows opened out of nowhere, and a man's voice said, "Come inside, the door's unlocked." Property like the rest. I went to open the door, and my mom stopped me and whispered, "Are you sure you want to go in there?" I said yeah. I let ourselves in, expecting to be greeted by Dan. The inside of this place was kind of dark. Not a lot of natural light came in through the minimal windows. "Hello?" I said. "Yeah, over here," the voice called. It was a deeper voice than I heard on the phone. "Dan?" I asked. "Yeah," he said. I began walking through the little kitchen, closer to his voice. My mom grabbed my shoulder and stopped me. She whispered in my ear, "We're leaving." The man's voice now came from beyond this door at the end of the kitchen. He called up, "Down here, we can do the transaction here." My mom and I left the house in a hurry. We were hurrying to my car. A lady at the next building over called to us. She came hurrying down from her front porch, warning us not to go in there. Then she asked why we were there, and we explained that I came to buy a car, but that he was calling us into his basement. The woman said that she's been concerned about that man living next door for months, that she thinks he's up to no good, and that he constantly has random cars pull up in the driveway in the middle of the night. We asked if his name was Dan. She said she wasn't sure, but that she vaguely remembered the guy introducing himself as Mike. She told us to just get far away from the house immediately, and so we did. It's disturbing to know my mom and I may have been murdered in that basement if we went down there. Like, how could we do a transaction before even viewing the car or agreeing on anything? Better question why in the basement. The whole thing screams trap. I don't know what else he could have wanted to do to us, more specifically me, in that basement. This actually happened to my best friend Chris. His family had just bought a new TV and they were thinking of just throwing their old one away. Chris's older brother John suggested to their dad Rick that they could sell the old TV on Craigslist to make some easy cash. Since the family never used Craigslist, John said he could set up the ad for him, since John's girlfriend used Craigslist before. So John put up an image of the TV with the description, "Used 55-inch Samsung 4K TV for $200. He also put Rick's phone number, so if anyone was interested, they could just call or text him. A week later, Rick got a call from a guy who introduced himself as Toby, and he said he was interested in the TV and wanted to know if he could come by the house at 10 o'clock that same night to pick it up. Rick said sure, and he sent Toby his address. Later that night, while Rick, Chris, and John waited outside the house for Toby to come so they could help him load the TV into his car, Rick got a call from Toby, and he said he wouldn't be able to make it to the house because he was almost out of gas. So he and Rick agreed to meet in the parking lot of a Circle K. After Rick got off the phone, him, Chris, and John loaded the TV in the back of Rick's pickup truck, and they took off to the Circle K where Toby said he was at, which was 15 miles away from the house. When they got there, they pulled up in a parking space next to the gas pumps, and Toby was filling up his car, a black Nissan Altima. A few minutes later, a tall, heavy-set bald guy with a goatee walked over to Rick's truck and said he was Toby. He told Rick that since the TV was big, it would most likely not be able to fit in his car, so he suggested that they could just follow him back to his house, and Rick agreed with him. After a few minutes of driving on the main highway, they got onto a back road, which looked sketchy because it was nothing but trees on either side of the road, and it was filled with potholes. Toby texted Rick and said his house was at the end of the road. When they got to the end, the place that was supposedly Toby's house didn't even look like a house at all. It looked more like a tall, abandoned building. When they got out of the truck, Toby told them to untie the TV from the back so they could start unloading it. After they untied the TV, they turned around and saw 3 large men emerge from the back of the car, and they all pulled out guns, including Toby. They threatened to kill them if they didn't give them all they had on them. Rick, Chris, and John didn't hesitate, so they all gave the guys their wallets and phones, and they obviously took the TV too. After taking everything they had, the guys got back in the car and drove away. When Rick, Chris, and John got home, Chris and John told their mom everything that went down, and Rick called the cops and told them the whole story, and even gave them the license plate number for the car since he memorized it. To this day, Chris's family never heard of any arrest being made. That was the one and only time the family ever used Craigslist. Back in 2012, when Craigslist was more popular, I'd say, my house was broken into and robbed. A bunch of things were stolen, like 2 TVs, my Xbox 360, all of my video games, my hockey skates, and whatever stray cash I had laying around. I had the police come investigate the house, but nothing that would help track the perpetrator, including fingerprints, was found. I gave them a list of everything that was stolen, but the cops in my county usually suck, and they didn't help at all. Now I had to replace everything that was stolen. Believe it or not, the most costly thing to replace would be the video game collection. But I was starting with the